Hey everybody, it is Ian of Austin. I am here with a friend and business partner. His name is Samir Merchant. Here's the situation. First off, let me mute my phone because that's really annoying, but this is live-ish, right? Recording, so I'm not gonna do that right now. Listen, I want to be able to share with people any kind of relationships that I have, any kind of information with business partners that I think is valuable to people that are looking to buy and sell real estate. And I think one area of interest that gets overlooked is the area that Samir's in. But instead of me talking about it and trying to convey all of the information, I'm just going to ask Samir. Samir, man, why don't we start off by telling people what the heck you do? A little about yourself too.
For sure. Hey guys, Ian's the man. So, we're really happy to be here today. But yeah, man, a little bit about me. My name's Samir Merchant. Grew up in Dallas, went to Texas for college. Hook 'em for all those Longhorns out there. For
Hook
anyone
'em.
that's not, we still like you too. um, but yeah, me and my brother kind of started in the insurance space. I was in commercial real estate beforehand on the investment side. And then, we really want to take that kind of knowledge and build an insurance agency, kind of from the ground up with that, pure real estate understanding. So we've kind of been in that space for some time now. And, we do a lot of business kind of across Texas, but our focal points are in Austin, Dallas, and Lubbock. Those are kind of our core cities that we really focus and brand ourselves in. Aside from kind of all the work, we do like to have fun. I'm really big into water sports. I ran competitive cross country and track at Texas too. So
Oh
that
wow.
still continues to be a big hobby of mine, and, running marathons and doing races all around town. Um, and then, we love Netflix, kind of all the same stuff, friends and family. But, we like to think of ourselves as the people's people, right? Like, we are there for the people. We want to help you guys. And that goes, even beyond insurance. If there's anything you need, we can help you out. We'll always be there.
So running, what got you into that? Why do you run? I'm
You
just
know,
curious. As a person
that's a
who
great,
doesn't really enjoy it or understand why someone would enjoy it, I mean, I believe in exercising. Help me understand. Why the heck do you run?
that's probably the funniest thing I've ever heard, because I get asked that multiple times every single day. So for me, out of middle school, when I went to a high school in Dallas called Coppell High School, and I couldn't. I really wanted to play basketball, but then
Mm,
everyone got a little bit taller and a little bit better at
I,
basketball than I was,
I
and
get
I
you. I get
and
you.
you can echo that,
Oh yeah.
and I couldn't play. And my parents, and myself were big sports people, and we're like, "Hey, you gotta play a sport." And I'm not the best when it comes to hand-eye coordination sports. So I'm like, what is there left? And one of my buddies, Weston, convinced me to run, and I started laughing. I was like, bro, who's gonna run? Like, that is the
Yeah.
most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Apparently, it's me.
Yeah. Apparently.
Apparently, so he got me into that, and the interesting story on that was my first year in high school. I went to the Coach Ferris, Roxanne Ferris. Y'all can look her up. She's the coach at Highland Park now. And I said, Coach Ferris, I want to be on varsity. She said, Samir, we don't do that. We don't take anyone. And I was like, hey, coach, like, I'll do whatever it takes to get a spot. And she said no, back and forth. And finally, I was like, hey, coach, what if I get a good enough time and I'm better than someone? And she's like, you know what? No one's brought that up to me in my 30 plus years of coaching,
Wow.
but I'm going to take a shot on you. And yeah, go get this time. So every day that summer, I got up, ran with my friend, competed in meets across, around town. And eventually I got to that time. And it was super exciting because
Man,
even my
that's
friend was like,
cool.
you know,
What a unique approach too. Like posing a challenge to the teacher. That's like
yeah,
reverse psychology at its best, man. That's great. That's clever.
it's super exciting. And ever since then, I've been hooked. I did it in high school, did it in college, still really involved in that scene. And for me, it was, now a big part of it for me is like, how do I help and, just get involved and help that next generation get to that level, right? Of
Oh,
like,
yeah.
hey, I want to be a good athlete. I recently did one through our church. It was in Austin, and it was a pretty big one. We had like, track wasn't as popular as other sports, but I got a couple medals and it was super exciting. But I realized, back in the day for me, the medal was like everything. I could show
Yeah.
someone and say, hey, mom, I did it. But for me there, I got it. And there was a little kid, he ran the same race. He ran, it was a 5K on the track, which is brutal for anyone that's wondering. But he was looking at his mom. He's like, man, he saw the medal and his eyes lit up. And I went up to him and I was like, hey, man, this is for you. Like, he's like, what do you mean? I was like, I have more medals than I can count. I can probably go do a local road race and get a couple more, but it's not really about the awards anymore. It's about, helping someone achieve their best, their fullest potential. So he was super happy, parents tearing up. And I
Yeah.
was like, you know what? If I can help make you better, that's all I can really ask for now. So
I love that, man. Wait.
yeah,
You gave the kid one of your medals or just a random medal?
I gave him one of my medals.
Really? Wow. That's got to
Yeah.
mean a lot. I wonder, man, that's really cool. How long ago was that? A little while ago?
Yeah, that was like kind of end of last year, like
That's not
fall
that long.
time or
That's not that long ago.
not too long ago.
That's
Yeah,
not
but
that long. I'm sitting
that's
here
not that
thinking
long.
that's
Yeah, about
like
like 8 months
6,
ago.
7, 8 years ago. Oh man, you just
No,
did that. That's cool. That
I
takes a
wish. And
good person.
my goal is to keep kind of continuing that. Like any race I do, stuff I get, it's the shirts, the clothes, the medals, like they're cool, they were cool, but it probably means a lot more to someone else
Absolutely.
that has some meaning, it's meaning out of that inspiration. So.
Hmm. It's you. You said the reason why you got into running. I wanted to equate that to I got into wrestling. So I
Oh,
was
okay.
a wrestler. Here's the thing: when I went into high school, I was 4'8", 68 pounds. In high school, it was
Oh,
nothing.
wow.
I was
That's
like a
nothing.
toothpick, right? So it's interesting because I figured I go into wrestling. I don't have any competition. Nobody weighed that. So what they did, which I didn't know until after I was part of the team, is that they would put me with the 103 class. And so now I had to work way too hard to just keep up with the lowest end of the spectrum, man. It was crazy. Anyway, that was I get you with the size. Couldn't play basketball. I could run,
Yeah.
which was fast for my legs, but that didn't really work for anything else. But wrestling was my thing. So running, wrestling, very cool.
Cool. Yeah, wrestling's awesome. It's a hard sport. You gotta stay at a weight and
You do? Well,
yeah.
I didn't. My my like I could eat all the pizza in the
Yeah,
world and I was still
you
40
fall
pounds
underneath the
less.
threshold.
Yeah, 40 pounds off, man. So it's kind of cheating a little bit. So, okay, obviously we're the discussion should be around real estate, at least a little bit, but I love that intro. When someone's thinking about buying a house or selling a house, mostly buying, how the heck does insurance come into play? In their like why is that important to them? I know it is, but
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So insurance is super important. I think a lot of times people kind of think about it at the end of something and they say, hey, I finally got this home, right? Like I
yeah,
need insurance now. But I think it really starts kind of in the beginning of the process, right? It's like, you know, when you're buying a home, you always want to make sure, it's probably going to be the one of the biggest, if not the biggest, purchase you'll make in your lifetime. It's where all your memories are going to be hosted to, and it's where you're going to host people.
yeah,
So you want to make sure that's a place that is covered properly. So I always tell people, hey, start thinking about it kind of in the beginning of the home buying process and just seeing, hey, these are some things that are going to be important to me based on kind of the house I'm buying. So a really good example I like to kind of give is, for example, me, I live in a little bit of an older home. It's a
okay,
nice area. But I have some optional water coverages on my home. And that's really to make sure, sometimes with some of these older homes, you're looking at, potential, water seepage or water foundation claims that may happen to you. And those are really expensive. You do
mm-hmm,
not want those. So we always recommend, kind of what's really important to you, what's kind of the value ballpark of your house, so we can make sure we have enough sufficient coverage for all of your belongings. And then, when it really kind of kicks into play, so, you coordinate with your realtor, which if it's not Ian, it will be.
Thank you
Then
for
you
the
work with your
plug.
lender, right? You work with your lender. And usually those two pieces go hand in hand. And then kind of as, you're going through that loan process, getting everything approved, insurance will come into play just as your preferred insurance agent. We'll make sure, we have the right type of coverage for your home, kind of built into that policy. And then, everything will kind of get all closed up and ready to go. So it's super important. And we always say, hey, it's better to be one step ahead than one step below.
You said something when you were explaining that in the process, you said you work with your realtor, your lender, and you to get that insurance. This is all while you're still, before you own the home. I don't know that the world really understands that, or a lot of the people that are going through a process, especially for the first time, I don't know if they understand that insurance is a big part of it up front. It's a big
Right.
part. It can affect their payment. It can affect, like you said, their coverage and their warranties. If something goes out, I mean, it's really insurance that's going to protect them.
Super important. Yeah, super important. I think it's one of those things that's overlooked. I know even my own parents, it's a great example. I asked my mom, I said, hey, when was the last time you checked your insurance? She said, that's a trick question.
Oh, yeah, it is. Like, ma, I got you. That's funny.
But of course, since we started the business, this is what we do. We made sure we had everything right in our policy. But it's super important because I think a lot of times people think of it as something that's supplemental, but
Yes.
a lot of times it's not just something that's kind of tacked on. It is something that's a primary thing. And those mortgage, those a lot of times it gets kind of bundled into those escrow payments. So people are like, oh, don't worry about it. But,
Right.
like anything else, it is still an outflow of cash, right? Like you want to make sure that it is the right, payment that you're making every month. If it's something that you get a chance to review, I would say, aggressively once a quarter, but even if it's twice a year, you're probably in the upper echelon, top 5% of Americans that even do that. So
That's
maybe
good.
just kind of put something on your calendar. Hey, it's, if I'm thinking Jan to December, I would say mid-July and end of year, right? And just say, hey, I just want to, or if you want to be a little bit more precise, I would say, let's say your insurance starts on, let me give you a good example. Let's make it simple. Using my same example, that would mean your insurance, let's say, started on January 1st, new year, new insurance.
Yeah.
So you'd want to make sure, hey, let's check kind of mid-year, July 15th, end of year, December 30th, 31st, just to make sure, hey, if there's something else that needs to be added onto the policy or modified or something changed with carriers. A lot of times carriers change, rates change. You're just kind of on top of it, right? So
Yeah.
that's something kind of unique we like to implement.
Yeah, I think that's good. There are some people out there that they've had the same insurance for let's say 25, 30 years. And there's nothing wrong with being loyal. In fact, that's highly sought after. You want someone that you can be loyally attached to and have the conversation and say, hey, are you looking out for my best interest? And that's why, they'd reach out to you for that. But even though you and them have that relationship, your providers, your carriers may change, right? And so them having access to that through you is really, really incredible. So they're not checking to like leave you. They're checking to understand if you have new options for them.
Yeah, new options I think are important. If something changed within that respective policy and that carrier, I think that's super important for an agent to update them and say, hey man, I know with coronavirus right now, there's certain carriers that have been refunding part of the premium.
Yeah.
So if your agent hasn't done that, that's, something that either you should double check in with them or see, hey, is there someone who's kind of more knowledgeable that can get that information to you right when they know it? A client should know it too, right? Because it's their policy, is something that protects their livelihood too.
Yeah. So I want to ask, I don't like being morbid or negative. I really don't like that. But what I want to do is kind of emphasize how important it really is. And so with that, I'm going to ask you, do you know can you give me like kind of, I don't want to say a horror story, but give me a story of something that's happened in the insurance world that you think people should kind of hear?
Sure, sure. So one of my buddies, he lives in San Antonio, sold his company for a very large sum of money,
Good for him.
um, and he decided, hey, I want to buy a Lamborghini Aventador, and that's exactly what he did.
Ooh, okay.
um, Super nice
That's a
car, very
beautiful car.
beautiful car. um, and we wrote his insurance policy on the auto and made sure it's properly covered. He also had an umbrella as well, which for those of you that don't know, that's something that's going to cover you for kind of $1 million plus in excess coverage, both on your home and your auto.
Okay.
So unfortunately, he got in a pretty bad accident on the highway with another exotic car. It was a Rolls Royce.
Oh my
Close
gosh,
to
Lamborghini and a
him.
Rolls Royce
Um,
collide into a bar. That sounds horrible. Okay.
it does sound horrible. And the reason I kind of bring up that story is you would think, even I would think, hey, I'm not going to hit a Rolls Royce.
Of
It
course
wouldn't
not.
happen to me. It's one of the most expensive cars that you could buy, right?
It
Like,
is.
but luckily, he had that umbrella. His insurance policy on his auto was kind of maxed out. So when it came time, to sorting out all the insurance and the claim, he didn't have to pay anything out of pocket, just pay the deductible, which is a lot better when you hit a car that's valued at about $1 million, retail stock
Yeah.
that you're probably covering. So the reason we bring that example up too is because, a lot of people say, oh, but Sam, I don't need, an umbrella policy.
Right.
And considering, we go through and see, hey, if you qualify for one, we definitely recommend it, right? It's probably the cost of a couple Chipotle meals a month,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it makes a huge difference if you hit, a car of that nature. And, especially in Austin, there's a lot of nice cars, right? Like we want to make
There are.
sure that uh, people are properly covered if and when something like that happens. So
You know what's interesting about that? You said there are a lot of nice cars, but there's also a lot of bad drivers. And I don't mean that their drivers are necessarily bad. I think, and I did this in a video. I did this in a video. I was talking about 5 reasons not to move to Austin, and it's crazy because it's one of my most popular videos. I want people to move here. I'm a realtor. Of course, I want you to move here, but I want to tell the truth and explain to people why there may be things that they don't know about. And I talk about traffic. What you have is people from LA, New York, Chicago,
yeah,
Russia, India, Brazil, moving here, driving the way they're used to driving here. And that makes for a lot of insurance policies, claims, sorry, a lot of insurance claims.
yeah.
So I think people don't give it enough credit. And
Oh, it's
that's just their
huge.
cars, but houses, you have, I mean, there was a whole city that just caught on fire, Bastrop, the whole thing, it just caught on fire. Like, that's important. That's
Yeah,
important. The floods, when I first moved here in 2015, we were at the bottom of a set of hills. So we were kind of in a valley, and
yeah.
there was a huge flood that year. I came home and my motorcycle, I was like, no, my motorcycle was stolen. Turns out it wasn't stolen. It was laying down sideways under the water. And then
Oh God.
about a month after that, it did get stolen. So all that to say, I'm very familiar with insurance and the need to have it. I think it's a good thing, and people don't think of it as a good thing, which is unfortunate. It's really a benefit to you.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's super important to think of it as an asset. I think a lot of people see, oh well, my bank account, went to this value after buying it, but you should think about what your bank account would go to if you didn't have it, or if you didn't have enough of it, right? Like you could almost be, you know, completely wiped out. And I think, just having that peace of mind, that security is so important. It goes such a long way, like on the real estate side, when people think, hey, I'm buying a house. Well, hey man, you're paying probably a big chunk of your life savings, to make that largest purchase of your life.
Yeah.
What's a couple extra bucks going to do? It's going to
Right.
protect it. And it's super important to see it that way.
Yeah. I'm playing with the idea of creating a new decision tree for myself and like the decisions that I make. And obviously in there you have things like insurance and the cost versus the opportunity, like or versus the protection, right? Or the value. So I might pay, let's say $10 extra a week, but if my value is worth $500 a month, but people they don't see it. So I
And
like that.
I think that's super important and kind of relatable for a lot of people, right? Because you see kind of like with luxury goods, right? Like a lot of people, if you say, hey man, you want the newest Louis Vuitton wallet? It's $500. They're like, oh yeah, sure. Only 500 for a wallet.
Yeah.
It protects my assets, but it doesn't. It
It doesn't
protects your
protect anything.
liabilities. It protects your credit cards,
Yeah.
which you use to make more purchases. So, if that is a hobby or interest, that's great. A lot of people love that stuff, but I would say, why not kind of reprioritize or at least think about that bucket or those outlays of cash that you might have, and see if you can kind of prioritize those, right? Maybe that goes into your rent or your mortgage payment. Maybe that goes into your insurance, right? Like how can you kind of manage your finances to make good decisions that are going to impact the well-being of yourself and of your family, right? So real estate, biggest example of that, right? People think, hey, I'm just buying a house. Not really, right? Like
No.
you're buying something that's going to create memories, that's going to create longevity for your children or your spouse, or even if it's just your single yourself, right? And I think that's super important because, everywhere from having people in the hood, their experience too. So it's not something that's just for you; it's for others as well.
Yeah. I mean, they've called it the American dream for a long time, and I still think that a lot of dreams are funded through purchasing a home and obviously protecting that purchase.
100%, 100%.
Very good. I like that, man. Okay, so if you're talking to somebody and they're thinking about buying or selling and they're looking at the insurance aspect, what's a tip? What's something that you can tell them to kind of look for so that they're not wasting their time or someone else's time? Something that can help them out. Any kind of good tip that you can give when shopping for insurance?
Yeah, yeah. Um, I would say kind of a good tip that I would definitely go by when you're looking for insurance is understanding what you currently have and the value of it before going to look for rates, right? I think a lot of people
Interesting.
say, hey, I think my home is this, but they don't know. They just looked it up or they Googled it or they asked their friend, hey, your house is worth this. Okay, I'm just going to tell them, hey, my house is worth this. But do a little bit of research on what you have and what you think it's worth.
You
So
know what
that
they
way,
could do? Sorry, real quick. I was just going to say they
yeah,
could just ask their realtor.
yeah.
Your
Ask your
realtor will
realtor.
tell you how much your house is worth. It's so simple.
Exactly. Ask Ian, right? Like, be like, hey man, hey Ian, I'm looking to get insurance on my house. Could you kind of tell me what my house is worth? And
Mm-hmm.
then Ian will tell you back, hey, this is what your house is worth. And then it makes your process so much easier, right? Because now when you're going for insurance, your realtor's done the due diligence on the house, what's a part of it, all that stuff. And it makes it really easy on the insurance side because we can make sure, hey, you know, we always ask some liability questions. So we can make sure those are kind of incorporated in our conversation with them as well.
I like that. I think that's, again, another thing that's overlooked. It's a really good tip. Go in
Yeah.
knowing what you're protecting, what that's worth.
Yeah. And the same thing goes kind of for personal property in the home, right? Like realtors are really tied into that, invested into those deep relationships, right? They'll probably be able to tell you, things more that are more granular, like, hey, this client, they're gonna have this space as an office. Well, that's really good information on the insurance side as well, right? Because we know, hey, you have some personal property there, you have a couple of MacBook Pros, like
True.
it's good for us to know that type of granularity. Um, and I would say life events is kind of that last piece, right? A lot of people will buy a home right after they got married or got engaged or some big life
Mm-hmm.
event happened. And the super important part is how that relates to insurance as well, right? Like if your realtor, which it's not, again, should be Ian says, hey man, they just bought a new house and they got a ring. Well, let's look at what it would cost to schedule that ring on the policy, right? That's probably one of your more expensive items. You wouldn't want to get lost. I hope not, right?
Hey, I'm gonna say, look, I I I have my ring, but I don't misplace it. I place it places in the house. Anytime I take a shower, I take my ring off, and
Yeah.
sometimes I end up going out to work and it's so yeah, I should definitely protect it just in case. It's one of those things that you don't think about without talking to somebody who really knows their stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
So, what I like to kind of delve a little more into like the personality of people I'm talking to, and that way, if someone does want to connect with, pause. That was really loud. Sorry for that. Don't know what that was. I mean, obviously I know what it was, but I don't know why that was. Maybe that's the better question. I made tea. Maybe the tea was smoking or something earlier. Anyway, so to continue, what I was asking is, do you have like a quote or a phrase that that kind of like guides you or that you like to live by? You probably have a bunch. But can you pick one that you'd like to share?
Yeah, there's a lot. And we have a lot at our house, in our office, all those spaces. I'm a big fan of, it's a quote by Jordan. It's I can accept failure. Everyone fails at something, but I can't accept not trying again. I think it's super important for any field that you're in, whatever it is that you do or want to do in life, just being able to accept that, hey, you're going to get knocked down a couple times, but that's just a part of it. And I think kind of taking it one layer above, that it's not just about your failure, right? It's about the people around you will be there to support you and get you through those times. But being able to embrace that and do something that's uncomfortable, right? I want to say a little bit before we kind of hopped on this, me and Ian were talking about it's really important to be uncomfortable and in certain situations and push yourself, right? Because the mind, the body, the soul, they're all three mechanisms that sometimes don't completely align.
Mm.
And I think it's really important to get those things to align to be able to accomplish what is you're looking to do, right? Maybe someone told you, hey, Samir, you wouldn't be good at basketball. Well, maybe I would be. Maybe if I played every single day,
Yeah.
and took 2,000 shots a day, I'd probably be pretty damn good. So a lot of times I think it's about stretching yourself and putting yourself in situations to really grow, both personally, professionally, socially, and be able to surround yourself with people that are about that type of self-growth and vocalize your goals to them. Tell them, hey, here's something I'm going to do. I'm going to check in with you. Is that cool if I get 2 minutes of your time? I promise you, most people will be really happy to help you out and really want to see that type of growth in you, especially when you're willing to pay it forward and help them as well, right? Because nobody's perfect. I think that's really important to emphasize. um, Nobody's perfect, like nobody's perfect. Nobody can do everything. Nobody knows everything about what they're doing. That's just not how people work. But I think if you have genuine interest and passion to do something, to push yourself, really be able to resonate that and do something every day that scares you. Even till today, I'll send one text, one email, one call that is like, you would never think you would get a response from it. But looking at it now, I kind of have one really concrete example. So this was back when I was in college at Texas. One of my buddies owned a small business and I didn't know him, right? Like I cold reached out to him. I was like, hey man, I, I would love to kind of do some consulting, work to help you out. And he didn't reply. And I was like, okay, kept going at it.
Okay.
After a couple months, he got back to me. He's like, hey man, sorry, I've just been busy. Whether or not that's true, we don't know. But he ended up becoming one of my friends in Austin. And he was like, hey man, there's someone named Chris who's going to come down, and he's thinking about opening up a dispensary. I was like, okay, cool. So this dude, Chris, comes in, and, pretty big African-American guy, really athletic. And I was like, hey man, good to meet you, Chris. Talked to him for a little bit, got to know him. And I went across the gas station, and I was like, I saw he was drinking G2, the healthier version of Gatorade. And I was
Oh,
like, oh, it's
funny.
fine enough for him. Maybe I should just go grab some Gatorade across the street, because I was
Yeah.
already going to get a couple snacks and stuff. So brought us both back some Gatorade, and he looked at it and he had like tears in his eyes. I was like, what's going on? He's like,
Yeah.
man, that's like the nicest thing anyone's ever done for me. And I was like, really? I was like,
No one's ever given you a
in my head, I was
Gatorade
like,
before?
it's just Gatorade. Yeah. And he was like, when I used to play in the NFL, I had everything, and frankly, he still does, has the homes, the cars, the big bank account, all that stuff. And he was like, but ever since I left the league, people just don't treat me the same. And he's like, the fact that you did that without knowing me, I didn't know who he was, what he did.
Yeah.
Honestly, it probably really wouldn't make a difference. I'd still get the Gatorade.
Yeah.
And till this day, he's one of my really good friends. And I think that's super important, because I would say if you took a poll and you asked the average person and said, hey, you're a young professional, there's no way you can meet with celebrities or, athletes or anything like that. They'd be like, that's impossible, but clearly it is possible. And I think, that's super important to understand, is if I didn't kind of take that initial first step that was out of my comfort zone, and frankly, I still do, those things wouldn't be around me ever. And
Yeah.
I think that's super important for people to really be able to latch onto that and create that. And honestly, never think that people aren't there for you. You can always send a text. Like, I know, right when I met Ian, I knew he was that type of person. That's why I'm here today. And the same thing goes vice versa for me. If there's something you need to reach out to me about, you need a life coach, you need anything, even if I'm not that person, I probably can help you out in some way.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome, man. That's really cool. The fact that you brought him something, and he was so used to just getting everything, and then all of a sudden it was, taken away when he not lost, but stopped, I guess, his career, or his career changed. And it's kind of a testament to how people treat others. So I think it's good that you kind of ignore, like, it should be judgment free, right? Look, if I can help you, I'm gonna help you. I've got this thing, not a big deal. Here you are. I love that, man. That's awesome.
Judgment part is super important to emphasize, right? It's like, don't judge people. It doesn't matter how they look, what they do, anything. If they're a good person and they're genuine, that will go a very long way for me. Chris, he told me too, he said growing up, he was extremely impoverished. Like, he's like, Samir, in our household, we would have 1 gallon of milk, and that would be for my parents, my siblings, me, and we'd have to make it last the whole week. Wow. So being able to go from that to being able to play a professional sport, I think is just a huge testament to, a lot of people are sitting in their homes, in their cars, and they're like, man, I can't do it. Well, that's a big news flash. That's someone who basically didn't have food or, basic essentials, and was able to, get to the highest in their sport. So
yeah,
I think that's like probably the best example I got right now.
Well, that's a great example. You have a lot of excuses in this world, and the word privilege is thrown around, and opportunity, and all that sort of stuff. And I think that we mostly have the opportunity to make our own privilege. And so it's just good to hear that. It's good to hear that someone, a real life example, someone close to you that has been able to take that to the extreme. That's awesome. Very cool. So another question, again, it kind of falls in line with giving insight, because that last question I asked about a quote, and it just led into this whole thing. Great conversation. Do you have a book that you would recommend almost everybody reads, like maybe a favorite to you or something that's impacted your life in a positive way?
Um, yeah, that is a great question. I really like, there's a book called Fanatical, excuse me, Prospecting. I think there's a lot of good takeaways on that. Of course, like a lot of it has, a lot of business related terms and goals for, how to go about building a business. But I think it really applies to a lot of pieces of life in terms of how do you really build something? Because I
Mm,
think that's something that's super abstract. People don't really think about, like, how do you build something from nothing? Like that is like the ultimate golden question. So I like that book a lot. Um, there's one more book. I'm trying to remember the name of it. I just finished it up. It's oh god, I don't think I can remember. Let me see if I can.
well, what's interesting about that comment is uh, I don't think people realize, but everything in life is you're a salesperson, even though you don't want to be a salesperson. So you call it fanatical prospecting. I'm assuming it's kind of like about prospecting for clients, right?
Yeah.
But everybody's a salesperson for relationships. You have to sell yourself. For your job, you have to sell yourself. If you're in business, you have to sell yourself. And if you're an employee, you have to, after you get the job,
Oh,
you
you're
still have to sell yourself.
saying.
Every relationship, friendships, you don't just say, hey, you want to be a friend? Let's go. Like, it doesn't work that way. You gotta you
Yeah.
gotta have that conversation, build rapport, and build a relationship and actually connect. And so that's all. I could see that book being really beneficial for anybody, even though it's
Yeah.
through the lens of a salesperson.
Yeah, I like that one, and I like it's called Extreme Ownership, and I think it has a lot of really good nuggets. Um, it, it goes through kind of some more concrete examples of like how Navy SEALs are structured and how they lead and win in situations, and I think you know that part is super important in addition to kind of like the self branding, like we just talked about, right? Because at the end of the day, as a person, no matter what you do and who you are, the brand you create and how that resonates with someone is really what's going to get you that type of output that you're looking for, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
anywhere from, like we said, a job, an employee, uh, mindset. If you're a business owner, if you're, someone who's kind of like Elon Musk and you're a visionary. So pretty much anything you do is going to be based on your brand. And I think being able to first, create your brand of who you are, what you do, and the type of person you are, things you like to do, so on and so forth. And then how do you take that one step above and be able to expand that to people, right? You may be someone that's, really into tech, which I know me and both are. And, a lot of times people will say, oh, well, I use these certain platforms. Well, hey, why don't you be someone in your sphere of influence or, create your own sphere of influence and be like, hey, guys, here's 10 people, put a Facebook group together, make an Instagram group, whatever you choose to do it on, that's completely up to you. And say, hey, every Friday, I'm going to tell you about a new tech tool. People will be thrilled because
Yeah.
honestly, there's a likelihood they're probably not getting that information from anyone right now.
Right.
Same thing goes for books, right? That's why I like why Ian asked that question is book clubs. I don't know why they kind of died down, but I think they're awesome.
They
They're
are.
really, really good. And just saying, hey, invite 5, 10 friends and say, hey, I'm going to share a little, golden nugget of advice I got from a book that I just read. And, honestly, I think that would really help, help them in their personal life. And you can apply that, construct into anything, right? Maybe you're really into working out and you're like,
Oh
hey,
yeah.
I have my workout routines. That's great. So do I, but people come at it from a different lens, right? My friend Chris would give me workouts that I probably can't do,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
they would push me hard.
Yeah.
I have workouts that vice versa he probably can't do because they're really, running intensive and like core focused.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it helps each other grow because you're not going to get that day to day and you see it through the lens of someone. Ian's a wrestler. There are a lot of workouts he's done I've never done, and I would probably never do them if he never told me about them. So I think it's really important to have that kind of knowledge share and apply to different parts of your life to get a lot better.
Oh yeah, I love the workout example. In wrestling, we used to do, they were called red flag days. And one of the subsets of exercises were you had to run a lap. An intensive lap where it was up the stairs, down, around, and then sprint the hallways. But when you were running up the stairs and down the stairs, someone had to be on your back. And so being 68 pounds, the person that was on my back, the next person was a girl. She was hot. But the next person was a girl. She was 125 pounds. And that was my like measure. So I had to run with a 125 pound person up the stairs because that's who I had available. So yeah, I like the workout example. That one resonated with me. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so if somebody wanted,
Yeah, no, of course.
If somebody wanted to get in touch with you, let's say they were just curious about either having you look at their policy or they're thinking about making a move and they know they just want to have a conversation. They might just want to have a conversation and see what's going on, and you might be able to help them out. How would they get in touch with you? What's a good way? Do you have a website or Instagram? You probably have an Instagram, one or two. I know you do.
Yeah. Honestly, we're on pretty much everything.
Cool.
We're happy to kind of share that info with Ian.
What I'll do is anything that you say, I'll make sure to put in the description below.
Okay.
Yeah, but then anything that you can give out, just like, I don't know, website. Let's go with the website or Facebook.
Yeah. Website. We got our numbers, our emails. Anything. I think what I like to do that's a little bit different is I want people to be comfortable interacting the way they feel comfortable. So if they're like hey, I want to shoot you a message or an email, or I want to send you a DM on Instagram. I don't know why you would, but hey, if that's what you love and that's what you're on, we're more than happy to, kind of talk on there. But yeah, typically kind of on a day-to-day, I would say, phone is easiest just because we're on it all the time and we just see it pops up and we can kind of get in touch with them and get what we need. So
I like it, man. Once again, just for everybody, I'll make sure to put that information in the description of the notes. And I think that's good. Is there any final mention that you want to give to people before we sign off? I think it's been a good conversation, man.
Yeah. I would say the final thing is, we're really collegial people. We love to just get to know you on a personal basis too, and see how we can help you as a person. Interest is something we do and we really like it. We're really good at it. But a lot of times, people may have other questions and concerns or things that they need help with. And, we're really happy just to get to know you and help you out.
Very cool. Well, Samir, thank you very much for taking the time to just kind of share your knowledge and your world, man. I appreciate it. I'm sure everybody else does too.
Yeah. Anytime, guys.
All right. You have yourself a good one.
All right, man.